Okay, so we'll go back here, connecting live video.
We're probably on.
Okay, that's good. And go live. Okay, there it is, and comments are here. This is here. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Hey everyone, welcome to June's live broadcast. I am your host, Ranger Allie, and I am standing on the front lawn of the Big Meadows Visitor Center, and I have two special guests I'm going to invite on with me later. We're going to go over a few updates and announcements first, and when I am talking about those, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to insert those in the comment section, and we will answer as many as we can at the end of the broadcast. So first up, we're going to talk about the backcountry permitting system. We had our first public meeting for that on June 6th, which was this last Tuesday. You can find the recording for that on our website. There will be a link. We talked about the proposed permitting system that we hope to move online that will help us better manage the backcountry, improve visitor use, and to protect resources. If you have any comments about this, please include those on the PEP-C site, which you can also find a link for on our website. And when the public comment period is done on July 6th, we will then have park management evaluate those comments, and then we will have implementation of this new system in early 2024. There are also a few delays in the South District, particularly between miles 65 and 75 for milling and paving operations. So if you are entering at Swift Run Gap and heading south, or at Rockfish Gap and heading north, just be aware of those delays. Elk Wallow Wayside, which is located in the northern section of the park, is going to close the grill on June 12th, and probably through June 15th they'll have it back open. We'll have to give you guys some updates on that on social media. They need to repair some electrical issues, and so just the grill section will be closed. The rest of the wayside will be unaffected by this and open. We also have two events this month. Our cooperating association, Shenandoah National Park Association, is hosting a seminar. It's called the Illustrated Journal, and this is a seminar that invites you to learn how to draw and write your experiences when you come to Shenandoah National Park, or if you explore any place new. So if you are interested in that seminar, you can go to their website and sign up. And then on June 18th, which is Father's Day and National Go Fishing Day, we are going to have two organizations here, or one organization and one park fisheries crew here at Big Meadows at the Visitor Center. Our fisheries crew will be here at a booth, and they're going to tell you how we monitor our aquatic habitat. And Project Healing Waters will also be here on the front lawn where I'm standing right now, and they're going to be doing fly fishing demonstrations. Project Healing Waters is an organization that is dedicated to the emotional and physical rehabilitation of disabled active military service personnel and disabled veterans. So make sure that if you are interested in any of those events that you can go to our website and check them out. We have links to all of that and more information if you're interested. So we have our first guest, Jim Shabrel, who is the Chief of Natural and Cultural Resources, with us today. We're going to talk to him about some of the fishing regulations that we have in the park, because if you didn't know, you can't fish here in some areas. So we do have 90 mountain streams, and about 70 of those streams we do have fish in those waters, which is really neat. So you wanted to talk a little bit about today how we monitor those fish.
Sure.
So let's start with that.
Thanks, Allie. Hi, everybody. Allie was talking about the fisheries crew that's going to be coming up here in a few weeks. That crew does some work, what we call vital signs monitoring. And so that, as you would expect, if you were going to a doctor to find your health and take your blood pressure and those kind of things, those are the vital signs for people. So the ecological health of a park is measured as well, and that's what these fisheries folks do. They go out in the field, they work in the streams and assess the fish populations, the health of the streams, the water, those kind of things to monitor that vital sign.
Okay, great. So what about climate change? How does that affect the water resources that we have?
Sure, that's a big one right now. There's a lot of different stressors out there for health, and for aquatic systems, it's two big things really. Acid rain, which is one, which is generally getting better in the park, and then climate change, which isn't getting better, right? And so our challenge with trout, especially brook trout, is that they're sensitive to stream temperatures. And when the stream temperature gets too warm, it puts the fish in stress, or it can kill the fish if it's hot enough. And so we're concerned about the fate of a lot of streams in the park and whether they're going to moderate or be able to compensate with climate change and warming temperatures.
Okay. What can a visitor do to help better protect this resource?
Sure. I think everybody's concerned about the ecological health of the park and want to help. There's lots of different things. One, they can do their own work at home about climate change and trying to talk about climate change and how it affects places like this, special places like parks. And then they can also, if they're anglers, anglers can think about when they're going fishing, and if it's a hot day or a very stressful day, the water is really low flowing, might not be the greatest day to go fishing, because that's the day that might cause extra stress to fish. If you capture a fish and harvest a fish, and even catch and release, it'll put extra stress on the fish. So might not be the greatest time to go.
Okay. I see that you have a brochure in hand.
So this is something for anybody who's interested in angling in the park. It's called recreational fishing. You can get these at visitor centers and through the mail. You can also find a lot of this information, the same information, online. And so what it does is it lists all the different streams in the park, and it lists the streams that are catch and release and streams that are okay for harvest. It also talks about the fish species in the park. There's pictures here of brook trout, brown trout, and rainbow trout. And brook trout are our native species within the park, and those are the species that we're really concerned about. They've been here for a good long time, and we're hoping to keep them longer.
Yeah. So also, if you're interested in any kind of the licenses that you might need to acquire before you come fish in the park, those are also listed on our website. And then just more of an expanded view of the regulations in the park.
Absolutely, yes. And all it takes is a Virginia fishing license to fish in the park. Nothing special for Shenandoah.
Yeah, great. So we actually have Nick, who is part of the fisheries crew. He is here today with us. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
He brought his fly fishing rod, which is totally new to me. I am a spinning reel kind of person, so I am really excited to see you do this.
Yes,
we do have some hula hoops placed behind us. You might be able to see. We tried to get the brightest colors. He's going to demonstrate for us in a bit, but I just wanted to ask you, what is fly fishing? Can you give us kind of like a general overview of what it entails?
Yes, ma'am, definitely. So for me and like many other people, fly fishing is kind of a way to get out in nature, maybe go on a hike or something, but also kind of interact with some of the wildlife, mainly fish, that you'd be encountering in the national park. So growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina, I did a lot of bass fishing, a lot of catfish fishing, and then moving to Boone, North Carolina is when I got into fly fishing. So I've only been in it for a few years now, but I would definitely say that it's my favorite type of fishing. It's completely different than conventional casting or spinning or bait casting. It's just a completely different arena, and it's, in my opinion, it's way better.
That's great. It's so neat. I was telling him earlier how simple this setup is. It's pretty cool. So
yes,
what can you tell us about the fly that you're using?
Yes, ma'am. So the whole point of fly fishing is to imitate a fly that most of these trout or some of the other fish will be eating. And so the whole point is to be lightweight and as sleek as possible. So you can see that this rod is really long, and this is a lightweight rod. So this is a 3-weight. That's about as much as I would recommend, a 3-weight, maybe a 4-weight on these streams. Fly rods can get us much up to 5, 6, and 7, but the fish here simply aren't big enough. So you imitate a fly, and so these are all hand tied. So compared to a plastic lure or a rubber worm or anything, these are hand tied with elk hair or bird feathers or anything like that. And so they're very lightweight, and so the only way to kind of cast them out is to get some momentum and kind of sling it out there, and you're not launching these things 30 feet in the air and then reeling it back. You're casting it out in the water and letting it drift back down to you. So you'll be standing downstream of where you're looking to cast. It'll float down to you, and then you'll kind of whip it back out there again.
Okay. So it's my understanding that a brook trout's field of vision is kind of spectacular. Like, it spans
Yes, ma'am.
much further than you would think. So how is your approach to fly fishing going to be a little bit different?
Yes, ma'am. You
trout?
definitely have to be much more quiet when you're trying to sneak up on these fish. So a lot of times, so say this is the upstream, they're going to be facing upstream, so the downflow water is going to be coming downstream right into them. So that's going to be carrying the flies and their food right to them. So they'll be hanging out in a little bit of softer water just next to running water. And so as a fly or bait fish or something's going to kind of get caught in the current and come down, they're just going to dart out, snatch it, and then get back in. So you want to work downstream to upstream when you come to a site. So if you find a stream that you're going to want to fish, you're going to try to find a spot downstream and then work your way upstream, and then you can hop out whenever you're done. So you don't want to come upstream to downstream, because these fish are easily spooked, and as soon as you spook them, you might as well jump to the next hole, because they're not going to bite for the next hour.
Wow. Do you have any other gear that you recommend? Like,
Yes,
or that
ma'am.
you take with you?
Yes, ma'am. So I always bring this fly rod. I said it's a 7'3" 3 rate, very lightweight, and it breaks down, which is good. A lot of people in the park have telescopic rods, so they break down and then they just shoot them back out when they get there, because a lot of these streams require a pretty decent hike to them, mile and a half, or even more than that. So you really want to pack light. So this is about what I would wear to the stream. Waterproof boots, because most of these streams are shallow enough to where you can just wet wade. Unless it's winter or fall, the water gets really chilly. You may want to put some waders on. But right now the water temp's fine. I'm comfortable getting wet. So wear some long pants for ticks and just any other thing that might get on you, bugs. And basically anything that you're comfortable getting wet. And then I brought the backpack that I would bring. And so a tackle box that you may bring for bass fishing or catfish or anything else is probably going to be a little bit too much. It's going to be troublesome going from the middle of the stream to the bank to drop that off. You're not going to be one to hold it. So something over your shoulder or something like that. Some people also get a vest and they put their little boxes of flies in. And I would definitely recommend a net, because these fish are really hard to handle. And like Jim was talking about here earlier, they're really fragile. And so the number one thing you do when you want to catch a fish is you want to make sure you wet your hands first, and you want to kind of keep them in the net, in the water, as long as possible. So you don't want to be just grabbing them and being rough and throwing them up on the bank. Like, obviously you don't want to do that any fish, but bass and stuff are a little bit more hardy than these brook trout are. So you want to be very careful with these fish. And so a net kind of, number one, helps you catch them, because they're going to be jumping all over the place. But it also helps you kind of contain them while you're handling the fish. And so then this also just kind of helps me keep my stuff together. So you only need a few boxes of flies. It would open up like this. I have a few boxes of these, some tippet line. And so this green line that you can probably see is the fly line. It's more rubberish kind of material. It just floats. It's more corkish. And then you have a tippet line, which is a very thin, clear line. Very lightweight. So you tie that to the fly line, and then you get it about however deep your stream is. I go about arm's length, and then you tie your fly onto this line. So that's kind of what's going to be attached to your fly. And so you keep that in your bag. And then going back to the net, one of the biggest things is if it can be retractable. So there's some cords that you can get to kind of reach out there. I have a magnet. It works just the same. And then a lot of the fly fishing that I do here is dry fly fishing. So the number one thing I would recommend is some type of floatant. So that will either come in a spray or kind of a powderish thing. And so dry fly fishing is where the fly is going to be sitting on top of the water and it's going to be floating down. And so it's going to get wet really quickly, especially if you catch a fish. So you're going to want to put this on. It just helps it stay above the surface. It's going to save you a lot of time of trying to blow off the water or just kind of dry it off. Otherwise, it's not going to fish as well. Because fly fishing is all about how good of a natural drift you can get, not kind of changing anything about how a natural fly would act. So that's about all I would carry in my bag, other than water and snacks, and obviously pliers or scissors or something to kind of change out flies and take out hooks would be beneficial, but that's with all fishing. So
That's excellent. Thank you for that.
yes, ma'am.
All right, do we want to try it out?
I guess so.
Jim, your first up.
No, I think we have our expert right here.
All right, Nick, you
so-
go where you need to.
Yeah, so
Get
I'll
out
come
of the
right over
way.
here. But I'll do, normally there's 3 main casts of fly fishing. So the first one I'll do will be kind of the conventional fly fishing method, but I won't really use that on most of these streams, or you won't either, because it kind of requires a wide open space with not a lot of tree cover, and most of these streams are really small in width, and the riparian cover and the trees are just kind of all over the place. You're going to get snagged really easily. And then the second cast I'll do, and I'll kind of break it up, is a roll cast, which is what would be most common. And so for a roll cast, you would kind of come a little bit more to the side. If that's the hole I would want to fish, come more to the side, and you would cast it out, and I'll do it in a minute. And you would let it drift down, and then you just gently lift it up and just roll your fly back over and let it drift back down and roll it back over. And so then the third one is kind of rarely used. It's more if it's like you're in a really tight spot and there's a pool you really want to hit, but there's a tree down or there's something like that, and that would be an arrow cast. So that's for like very short distances. You're going to be right up on the hole, and it kind of takes a little bit to kind of get the hang of a little bit. But so I'll kind of demonstrate the first one, and then I'll just go from there. So the hard part is if this hook gets caught in the grass over here. And so the first thing you want to do is you want to get some extra line when you come up on a hole, and then you want to grab your fly. Oh, this happens a lot. And so you kind of get some of your line down, and like I said, you want to come from downstream to upstream. So a lot of times you'll find yourself kind of crouching behind a boulder or crouching behind something to try to give you some cover. So you just kind of come out here and you put it in the water. You get some extra fly line out here, because you're just going to gently kind of increase the distance that you're going to have on your line. You just kind of throw it out gently. And one of the biggest things that I struggled with when I was learning was I wanted to like kind of rush it out there. And what kind of helps me is if you just slow down and you slowly work some line out of the reel, and you just keep letting that work through your fingers. And then once you're ready, you just lay it out there, and then it'll start drifting towards you. And so then as it comes, you just pull in the slack line, and then once it gets close enough, you just go again. And so it's really slow. You don't have to rush it or anything like that. So you just go back and forth, and you slowly let the fly line out of your fingers as it gets back out there, and then you just cast it again. And so as it drifts down, you're going to want to keep your rod tip up, so when a bite comes, they bite very fast and very hard, or it can be subtle at sometimes, but most of the time if you're dry fly fishing, you'll see it happen very quickly. So then you just give a light set on the hook. It's not like bass fishing where you're going to have to like yank your whole arm into it and bend the whole rod tip. It's more gentle, otherwise you're going to yank these fish all the way behind you. And so as it floats back down, you're just going to keep doing it again. And so mainly you'll be fishing plunge pools, so deeper pools after maybe a waterfall or just a little cascading something. And so these will be deeper, slower moving water, and so you'll kind of come up to it, and then you'll cast into it and let it kind of flow down with the water. And I would generally fish a pool for maybe 5, 6, 7 casts and then move to the next one. They'll generally bite pretty quickly. If you can see some fish in there, you're more than welcome to stay as long as you can, but I generally try to keep moving. And so that's, like I said, this cast you probably won't use too much because you can see how much space I'm using behind me. So if there's any trees, you're going to be caught instantly, and it's going to be really tough. So the roll cast that I would do, which is what I use most common, I would come more to the side. And so it's going to be kind of hard in the grass because you kind of use the river's momentum. And I'm caught in the grass over here. There we go. And so I'll just kind of imitate it. So your fly will be drifting down across from you. And so you pull it up, and you just roll it over. And then it'll start drifting again. And so then you just pull the rod tip up high, try to get as much line off the water as you can, and then just throw it back over. So this one's not very technical at all. It takes a little bit of practice to get hang of. So the biggest thing with this one is you just want to make sure that you get as much line out of the water. Otherwise it'll kind of get caught and you'll lead to something like that. And so you just want to keep doing this, and like I said, just keep hitting the pool, a few casts here and there, and then you just move to the next one. And so then the arrow cast that I was talking about is in very tight spots. So this is definitely where you'll kind of be crouching down somewhere like this. And so this one you kind of have to be a little careful with because you're going to hold the end of your hook. So not the actual hook, but you hold your fly, and then see if I can get untangled here. And so you tighten it, you get some tension on your line, and so you'll pull it back like this, as basically like a bow and arrow, and you just release it, and it'll go out. And so you're not going to be casting far with this. You want to be right up on the hole. Sorry, the wind's kind of tricky here. And so like normally I'll be like crouched behind a tree or something, so you'll be doing it from your knees or crouching a lot, and so then you just like that. And so a few times it'll get caught on your finger or whatever, but it's not going to hurt too bad. So yeah, just this one takes a lot of practice. It's kind of a little bit more technical, so I kind of just point my rod tip wherever I want it to go, pull back as far as I can, and then just let it go. And then so this one you're not going to be letting out, you're going to be kind of casting the same distance each time. So you just kind of want to have an idea and hold the fly line and kind of gauge how far you're going to want that to go out. But those are kind of the 3 casting styles that I use throughout the park. The rolling one is definitely the one, if you're going to practice, I would use the most. And then maybe the arrow cast. And then some of the streams here are wide enough to where you can kind of get that back and forth swinging motion going. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have, I think. You have any more questions?
Great. Well, that's actually what we were looking through right now. We have a couple comments on Facebook.
All right.
Thank you for that, Nick.
Yeah.
That was excellent. So much fun. Let's see. We don't have anything on YouTube right now. On Facebook, Deb says, thank you for sharing this. and we see the smoke haze as well. Jim, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yes, the whole east, especially the northeast, is really getting hit right now by a lot of smoke from Canada. For our area, it's Nova Scotia, Ontario, those places, and it's a real challenge, especially closer to the fires, where people have health issues as a result. You know, people who are sensitive to smoke or have asthma have real challenges. Here, it's a little bit of maybe discomfort for some. It's not as bad, but it certainly obscures visibility that you can't see to the next ridgeline because of the smoke.
Yep. So yeah, if you all have any questions or comments you want to drop them, we'll stick around for another minute or two. If you have any questions for Jim or for Nick or for myself, we're happy to answer those. Or if you just want to say hi.
Yeah, and I guess some of the streams that I would kind of recommend and some of the flies that have seemed to be working for me, even though I've only been here 2 weeks so far, the North Fork of the Mormons River and perhaps the Rose River would maybe be your best bet if you're looking to kind of just get into it. I haven't fished the Rose River yet, but I know there's trout in there. There's actually brown and brook trout in there, so the brown trout's one of the invasive species that are in the park. But the brook trout are in there. But the North Fork of the Mormons, I have fished that. I fished that this past weekend, and I had some luck there fishing yellow sallies and a yellow stimulator. So yellow kind of seems to be the pattern that's going right now. The yellow stonefly are hatching right now, and so that's going to be kind of what the trout are going to be naturally eating. So trying to imitate that. But also a black ant or a Mr. Rapidan are kind of the most popular flies in this area. But like I said, the North Fork of the Mormons River, there's an easy trail to follow there. It's right next to the river, and the river there is a little bit wider, and there's not too much tree cover, so you'll be able to get some of that easier back and forth casting in, and not a whole lot of arrow casting or more technical stuff.
Great. And Andrew says, great demonstration. He also asked what your favorite stream to fish in the park is, but I think you just went over that.
Yes,
so, all right. I don't see any more questions popping up here, but if you all are watching this later today and you think of something, please drop it in there. We're still monitoring those comments as long as the video's up. So thank you both for being here today. It was an absolute pleasure, and it was a lot of fun to watch you do that. All right. So we will see you all again in another month. It'll be July. All right. Have a great one, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, it's up to me.